Here's some stock investing keys. You must always learn about the business, but you want to go a step further and learn about the industry. This allows you to expound on the knowledge beyond just the services, the products, the management that's focused on the business. It allows you to get a market scope on the entire environment and where the market is heading, if the business could be disrupted within that industry. It allows you to learn about the suppliers, the manufacturers related to that business. By knowing the industry, you can also do great comparative analysis, which will give you a slight edge in knowing how your business that you're invested in is doing, and also give you kind of a narrative on where the perspective of the general market is. Because if I'm learning about the industry, I'll know if a customer finds something unique about the competition or if they find something unique about my business. Now that you've done the business analysis and the industry analysis, you have to focus on business growth, you have to focus on market cycles, you have to focus on industry shifts. This paints a bigger macro direction for you where you want to head out. Now, with this analysis, one very important key is knowing your time horizon. If you're in it for the long term and the due diligence is done, then you don't have to stress about anything. You have a plan set up, price target set up, and you know how the business is going to fundamentally grow against the industry competition. With all these things combined, it gives you the calm and the patience to stay in it long term, which most investments have been proven to show the longer you're in it, the better they turn out to be. Finally, all businesses should be ready to pivot at any time, at any moment. If you have amazing leadership sitting at the top, whether it's the CEO, the COO, the CFO, then they're constantly analyzing what is happening within the business and within the macro levels of the business. This is where pivots are made. And pivots aren't always guaranteed to be successful, but if you're analyzing even the changes you're making on the data level, on an analytical level, then you should know that there is a track that you're following on. And this is what gives confidence to any investor. If they see you pivoting whenever there's an issue that arises, it allows them to stick around longer. Now, if they lose confidence in your management abilities and in the pivot decisions you're making, then expect them to exit out of your business as soon as possible. This is how businesses grow. This is how businesses stay in trend. This is how businesses advance their products. Pivoting is a key element of being in business because nothing stays steady. You might have the greatest restaurant in the last 10 years in your industry, but when that 10-year marker hits, you might see more competition coming. You might see new products coming. You might see new tastes developing. So whatever it is, you should always be ready to pivot. It could be 10 years, it could be 1 year, it could be 3 years. And a lot of those decisions are made by analyzing your numbers. If you're seeing a major shift in, let's say, one of your best products not selling as much as they used to, then you know you need to target that product. And then you're going to do a macro analysis on what your competition is doing. Why is their product within the similar guidelines selling more? There's just levels to the analysis, but in general, pivoting is a shift that you have to make based on any trend, any cycle, any momentum shift. Here are 3 leaders and experts in the investing world that you must get to know: Steven Schwarzman, Larry Fink, Ray Dalio. These guys are legends in the game, and they do more than just invest. They know all about real estate. They know about buying out entire businesses. They know about market cycles. Read all their content. Follow as many videos as you can of their interviews. Ray Dalio is extremely well known for his principles and philosophy of life, which go both hand in hand with investing and just living as a leader. He focuses on radical transparency, extreme open-mindedness, and viewing life as a series of patterns that are repeatable. And all this combined allows him to charge into his investments, whether he's or up and down, because he's lost everything once before and then recovered and came back better than ever, which allows you to know the tenacity this guy has and how he follows through with his goals. So here are 2 great quotes from him. Think of yourself as a machine operating within a machine and know that you have the ability to alter your machine to produce better outcomes. A second quote from Ray Dalio: to be effective, you must not let your need to be right be more important than your need to find out what is true. If you see these quotes, they have a correlation between them. It's digging deeper than more than what you see right off the cusp. It's about the element of understanding there's a greater world around you, and then you are a world within yourself. And you can make changes within yourself to target the bigger world, a direction that you wanted to go. Ray Dalio has written 3 amazing books They're considered a trilogy that everybody has to read. Even if you're not an investor, you should learn about these books because they go into more of a geopolitical analysis. The first one is Principles, Life and Work. Second one is Principles, Dealing with the Changing World Order. And the third one is How Countries Go Broke. Now, if nothing else could be more relevant than these three books of what's happening geopolitically and within the United States, within the new presidency, then I can't even argue with you. You have to read these books. And if you don't have time to read these books, you can find them on LinkedIn and YouTube. They've been animated and put into these short clips that add up to a bigger playlist. So once again, if you don't have time to read, check those out because they're very, very informative. They'll change your whole perspective and understanding of what's happening in the macro world. Let's look at the stock market from the week of March 23rd to March 27th. And it was a bloodbath. It looks like all the dips that have been happening are turning into entire sector corrections. And it's all due to the war with US, Israel, and Iran. Macro conditions are terrible and it's affecting the entire market. The S&P 500 is down 2.12%. NASDAQ is down 3.23%. Dow Jones is down 0.90%. Russell 2000 was slightly up 0.46%. Brent oil down 5.49%. Crude oil down 2.40%. Gold is down 0.77%. Bitcoin is down 3%. The entire market took a hit. And it's not looking pretty at all because the volatility is hectic. The buy the dip mentality is still around because people can't invest in houses. People can't keep waiting on interest rates being cut. But people are definitely thinning out how much they can put up with it. Because if you're getting a dip every week, how much more are you going to put on even though you want to? So the psychology is still there to keep investing in your best businesses. But looking at the macro conditions, you're getting impatient on when will it stabilize? When will there be a slight pop in the entire market, depending on fundamentals of a business rather than just macro conditions and poor leadership in the White House. If your buyer of businesses focused on growth, then your whole thesis is kind of failing right now. This is a market for the value investor. Because even if you look at businesses like the Mag 7, they are taking a huge hit. We already knew the software industry was taking a huge hit in general because of AI and agentic AI. But now, if you're looking at value, then you're seeing, hey, these software companies are down so far low, it doesn't make any sense where these Mag 7 related companies who are expending so much on CapEx, then how can these companies that are already established not defeat them in returns? So the psychology is changing between growth investing and value investing. And it seems like we're going towards a value investor game. Now, private credit markets are taking a huge hit too, but this trend existed before the war started. It's more in the confidence in the market and the concentration that they have within certain segments of their investments and the lack of public data that they present for investors. Now, some people might not know what the private credit market is, but it's often referred to as the direct lending market. It is a segment of the financial world where non-bank institutions such as private equity firms, hedge funds, or specialized credit funds lend money directly to companies. Unlike traditional corporate lending, these loans are not issued by commercial banks and are not traded on public secondary markets. And that's why there's a lack of data. So they're completely unlike corporate bonds or anything issued by businesses or the government. So the private credit market has been deteriorating for the last 6 to 9 months. If anything, the war is distracting media coverage on this issue because it should have been blown up much more than it has been. But when you have a war going around that can disrupt the entire economic system of the world, then you're not going to be thinking about private credit only. If these guys do take a hit, then they've made a lot of money in the past to even worry about where they're at right now. And now the stakeholders, obviously, you're going to feel bad for them that they stayed so patient for so long with them, and now they're struggling. Now, investors are going to have to make a decision if this is a systemic issue like 2008 or something that can be fixed with a quick pivot within a quarter or two. Now, these companies are highly levered, so that is an issue. You don't want them to default and cause a huge ripple within the banking and financial industry. But looking at how investors are reacting, they are being cautious, and they are looking at the financial sector as something to be wary about. Overall, the Fed might have to help to create some ease for this, but with the war going on, you can't really rely too much on the Fed right now. Overall, the conditions if they start to improve slightly, then you might want to get in, because at these lower prices, these companies historically have shown great upside. So let's see what happens, and definitely keeping an eye on this, and slowly maybe trickle some money in some of the top guys or some ETFs that are focused on the private credit market. I mean, with that, the financial sector is definitely seeing some shakiness, but surprisingly, the banks are holding up much steadier than expected. And that could be good for confidence, knowing that people aren't at the highest level of fear, even with the geopolitical conditions and the slight micro conditions within the financial sector and private credit sector. Beyond just stock investing, the global PMI, which is the Global Purchasing Managers Index, released, and it's showing a notable divergence between sectors. While manufacturing has shown surprising resilience and reached multi-year highs earlier this quarter, the dominant services sector is starting to lose momentum. Global composite PMI is 53.3, a 2-month high. Global manufacturing PMI 53.1, a 50-month high. Global services PMI 53.4, a 4-month high. The global engine is cooling slightly as energy costs rise. This is the highest global input price inflation roughly in the last 3 years. Bad for oil and bad for metal prices. And once again, you can tie it to the geopolitical risk we're facing with this war and the Strait of Hormuz being shut off, and possibly Yemen joining Iran and shutting off the Red Sea, and directly starting to attack Israel. Because what's happened is all these fractions that exist within the Middle East with Iran, they haven't really come together yet to give a full-blown attack. So there is some strategic component that is left for them to align themselves against the U.S. and Israel. And that might be the fear that a lot of global investors have, manufacturers have, on retaining the businesses that they have currently. There is nothing coming out of the White House that makes any sense. Even if you see senators and congressmen speaking on the information they're getting, they're looking at it as just child talk. Nothing factual, nothing concrete, nothing substantial, nothing you can draw any conclusions with, which is why volatility persists. And if senators and congressmen are complaining so much about the information they're getting, what do you expect us to be getting? We have to rely on the free media. We have to rely on individuals that are doing deep research. There's great sources out there like The Intercept, Zateo by Mehdi Hassan. Al Jazeera will give you more perspective from the Middle East side. So you have to go beyond your regular news sources that you've been going through, because once again, the White House, the CIA, the Pentagon, whoever is in charge of the intelligence and relaying that information is not doing a great job. And the answers that we're getting from Trump and Hegseth, they're just nonstop flip-flopping. So much so that Trump literally came out and said that we're negotiating with Iran. And then Iran came out saying, we're not negotiating with you at all. Whatever he's saying is a lie. Fast forward, then it comes out that there's mutual allies that is communication going through when Iran would like to directly speak with the United States. And the terms that are presented by the United States had no logic in them and had no analysis in them. I mean, if Trump thinks that he looks like we're strong-arming Iran with the deal that he's trying to make, no, we look stupid. Combine that with what comes out of the White House every day, it looks like we are completely incapable of doing analysis of the war and the economic conditions that will persist due to this war. And not understanding how quickly we need to pull out is also absurd. And what Iran wants, the U.S. can't accept, because that's not what Israel wants. At the end of the day, we've done what would have been our biggest threat, supposedly, which was the nuclear program. That was destroyed before even the war. So having to go into this war only means we're doing it to protect and aid Israel. And now that we're stuck in this quagmire, how do we, really portray that we are on top of our leadership and we're the ones making the decision? Looking at the economic condition in the stock market, Trump will have to pull out. Because once these campaigns start for the midterms, then looking at that by itself shows that the Democrats will do better no matter what, even if it is slightly bit. So there is no point in just waiting and even considering putting troops on the ground when there's so much disruption happening. And Trump, if he wants his presidency to be shown as something that's focused on business growth, manufacturing enhancements, just, making America top leader in all aspects of business and entrepreneurship, which is what the U.S. is built on and designed for, then why play this cat and mouse game with a country that said they're not willing to even negotiate, really? They're ready to just fight till the death. I mean, we've already killed their leader. We've already killed their commanders. Only thing left to do is invade the grounds. And that looks stupid on all parts because we don't want our soldiers dying. We don't want a whole new generation that's tied up in a war that lasts 10, 20, 30 years. I mean, this is not going to be even as bad or as good as Iraq or Afghanistan. It is going to be a whole another level of war. Shias from all around the world are going to come together to fight for Iran. That's a guarantee. Because at the end of the day, if this goes to troops on the ground, then we're playing an end game. We're playing the game that either Israel is wiped off the map or Iran is wiped off the map. Now, the middle ground of the Middle Eastern countries from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Oman, UAE, Yemen, will also figure out how they're going to play a part because they can't stay out of it either if this is accelerated with troops on the ground. They can't just be protected by their bases. They're going to have to fight too because Iran is going to take it to the next level. Who knows? They might invade some of these Middle Eastern countries. The Strait just has to function without any threats of violence. The U.S. can't send in their Navy to make it functional either. This should be looked at fully as a business decision. Because if the U.S. sends their Navy into the Strait of Hormuz, who knows? The Red Sea might be taken over by the Yemen Houthis. And once that is done, the U.S. is going to be depleted in two different fronts. Israel is going to have to deal with a whole another front. And then Lebanon is already a war that they're fighting and they're looking to conquer the land. That is never going to end either. It's going to turn into another Syria. Every single poll in the United States is showing that American citizens did not want this war to start, and we are ready to pull out as soon as possible. Nobody cares about if it's going to be declared a victory or a loss. We just want it to end. Also, polls are showing that United States citizens are against working with and alongside Israel on the level that we have. Israel is never going to learn their lessons because their whole government, their whole philosophy is built on conquering the entire Middle East. So their end game is complete destruction because the Middle East is not going to hand over their nations. Let's discuss the partial government shutdown within the United States, specifically affecting the Department of Homeland Security, which consists of TSA, Border Patrol, FEMA, Coast Guard, passport and visas management. The rest of the government is fully funded through fiscal year September 30th, 2026. Overnight, the Senate passed a bipartisan bill to fund most of DHS. However, the House rejected the bill today, and because it excluded funding for certain immigration enforcement measures, specifically ICE and Border Patrol. So this is more of a political battle rather than an actual issue based on funding disagreements. And now Senate has left for a 2-week recess without House agreeing on the Senate's bill. So the shutdown is expected to continue until at least mid-April, which is insane. These guys get to go enjoy their 2 weeks off for spring while TSA agents aren't getting paid and having to work. Huge lines all along the airports. It's just insane. Like, we can't make geopolitical decisions. We can't make local decisions. The current partial shutdown is a high-stakes power play. It's just a battle between the Democrats and Republicans based on everything happening with ICE. Democrats are withholding DHS funding as leverage to force systematic changes to federal law enforcement. This was triggered by the fatal shooting of Alex Preddy and Renee Good, both in Minnesota, by ICE officers. The goal is that they want new guardrails, including mandatory body cameras, stricter codes of conduct, and a ban on immigration arrests at sensitive locations like schools, hospitals, and churches. And typical of the Republicans, they're not looking at how this is affecting American citizens and our psychology of day-to-day activities and moving without fear. They're looking at this as Democrats being weak on the Border Patrol, as Democrats wanting more illegal immigrants here so they can vote for them. Looking at the United States geopolitics and local politics, whether it's just Congress or Senate debating, it just seems like the ability to negotiate is lacking on all fronts. The principals don't exist like they used to with respect and honor and facts. It's all about who looks better in the media, which is not the way America was designed to move. So with negotiations with the Iran, US, and Israel war, so far Iran hasn't shown any imminent threat against US or Israel. Only the opposite is true. Right now, Iran is controlling the economic perspective of the entire globe only because US and Israel decided to undermine negotiations and attack them secretly. Even after creating this whole mess, US has no plan, and Israel is determined to completely destroy the Middle East. Trump is just a rich child who is used to yes men. Anything he says either gets a lot of laughter or is considered prophetic standing, which, if they believe Trump could be a biblical character, then the Christianity in the US is faulty. It's fictional. Like, giving Trump that level of authority on a biblical level is not only disrespectful, but it's completely against monotheism. And it shows that a lot of these people sitting at the top in the White House and a lot of these people sitting at the top level of churches have no ability to do comparative analysis. When it comes to comparative analysis, you have to dig deep. You have to put yourself in the shoes of the opposition. And it's more than just talking to the opposition. It's actually digging deep into the numbers and the data and the factors that shift human psychology towards a way of a narrative that doesn't make any sense, or it is the core of their entire life and beliefs. So when you do comparative analysis, you put both sides side to side and alleviate any biased thoughts that you have, and you really look at the facts. And I hope the US can go back to that. Now, beyond the Middle East, people really need to see what's happening in Cuba. Due to historical sanctions by the US, Cuba has been living in the past for ages now. But now that we've taken over Venezuela, we've completely cut off their oil supply. By cutting off their oil supply, we've completely shut their grid down. There's no power, there's no electricity, there's no water supply. People can't go to work. Basically, people can't operate on their day-to-day activities. It's really messed up. And they need aid. People are trying to get them aid, but with sanctions, people are scared of the United States, what they'll do if they do help them. I really recommend checking out Hassan Piker's coverage on this. He's done a phenomenal job. He actually physically went there in the last 2 weeks and gave great coverage and spoke to all the people that are necessary to speak to over there and get a perspective that we can't get through the American media. So check out Hassan Piker. He's one of the best political activists in the United States, and he's killing it.